Good evening, everyone. Happy Friday. Welcome you all to another episode of Tech Talks 101 powered by F Code Labs. So, today we are going to start Tech Talks 101 Season 2. In Season 1, we actually reached out to the academia. We talked with professors and researchers about their projects and about all the different things that they were doing. And we gained a lot of exposure and a lot of new ideas from those discussions. So today, in season two, we are going to reach out to the industry. In season two, we are going to invite industry experts to come and talk with us. We're going to ask them about their experience in the industry and about the valuable advice that they can give to all of us. To start season two off, we have a very special guest joining with us. All the way from Sydney, Australia, we have Mrs. Sachithra Dangalla. Now, Sachithra is currently working as a software engineer at Atlassian, Australia. She obviously grew up in Sri Lanka, and then she went to University of Moratuwa, where she obtained her bachelor's degree in engineering in computer science and engineering. Then she worked in the Sri Lankan industry. She worked at WSO2 for over a year before she obviously moved to Australia. So today we are going to have a very interesting discussion, I'm sure. So without further ado, let's welcome Sachithra to the platform. Sachithra, thanks. Thank you very much for joining with us.
Hello, and thank you for inviting me.
Right now it's 7:30 in Sri Lankan time, and to those audience members who are viewing, it's 1 a.m. in Australia, which is past midnight. So thank you so much for staying up late for us, and obviously we are taking your time, but hopefully we won't waste it. Uh, Before moving on, I actually want to ask you this question. Right now, it's Christmas season, and you are in Australia. So Christmas is quite big in Australia. And what's going on? How's the festival season look like, and what's happening right now?
Yeah, Christmas is celebrated uh, really well here, but it's not like a snowy Christmas because, in Australia, the seasons are the opposite than in Europe. So we actually have summer right now. But right now we have a storm going on, so it's raining all day for the entire Christmas. So yeah, it's going to be a very rainy Christmas this time.
Yes. Before moving on, I actually have a small uh, point to make to the audience members. For those who are joining with us, please, if you have any questions to ask from Mrs. Sachitra, you can drop them in the live stream, whether it's on YouTube, whether it's on LinkedIn, or whether it's on Facebook. So I'll be able to direct those questions to Sachitra and get the answers from her. Right. So let's move on with our discussion. Now, I think most of the audience members who are joining us would want to know who's Sachithra Dangal. What's her background? What does her childhood look like? And really, what got you interested in software engineering?
Yeah, so I was born and raised in Sri Lanka, and my first school was Good Shepherd Convent Kotahena, where I studied till my O levels. And then I went to Devi Balika Vidyalaya, where I did my A levels, and then I went to University of Moratuwa to pursue my Bachelor's of Science of Engineering degree in Computer Science and Engineering. I would say my first steps into IT started, I think, lucky for me, it started at a very early uh, age because when I was in grade, I think 8 or 9, my school started this computer lab with the whole new computers and everything. This was about 15 years ago, so computers was not a very popular thing, even I mean I didn't even have like computer at home. So yeah, that was a very big deal at the time, so I was very interested to learn IT, and yeah, that's where my passion for IT started. And yeah, I just continued working on that through A levels. I did physical science. I did A levels in physical science stream, and you have an extra subject, and I did IT for that too. And yep, I just continued from there.
Yeah. So you talked about A levels. Now, obviously, you passed A level with flying colors. You obviously got to University of Moratuwa, which I believe is your first choice. Uh, let's now talk about your experience at University of Moratuwa and what 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 did those years look like?
Yes, so I was selected to Bachelor of Science of Engineering in University of Moratuwa, and as a lot of you might know, the first semester is essentially about everything. So we don't select a major or any branch of engineering at the beginning. So we do sort of everything. We studied electrical, electronics, civil engineering, mechanical, chemical, computer science, and a lot more actually. So yeah, for the first semester we did everything, and after the first semester we get selected to the majors based on our preferences and also based on our results, because uh, it's a very competitive. A levels are competitive because national universities are limited, so we have preferences plus our ranks to determine which departments to go in. And yep, so I got into the Department of Computer Science and Engineering. And yeah, again, that was a completely new chapter of my life, I would say. And I would say it's a new chapter of life of anyone going into any university, because I think that's where you start to live by yourself for the first time, because I was living with my parents till then, but then I moved to a boarding with my friends, which was really interesting, and we had so much fun. So yeah, and the 4 years of uni was truly amazing. I think there are like countless stories I could tell. I mean, yes, it was filled with lectures, assignments, and exams, but yeah, it was truly enjoyable time. Yeah.
Yeah, so then I mean, at the end of the third year, I believe you have an internship process, right? It's where you go and intern at a company. You obviously went to WSO2, and what was that experience like? And also your job experience in general. I think your first job was not even in technology. Let's talk about that for a moment.
Yeah, so yeah, it's something a lot of people don't know about me is that my first job was when I finished A levels. So, there is in Sri Lanka after A levels, there is a little bit of a gap until you start uni. There's like about a year or so. I'm hoping that will get better with time. But so in that period of time, I saw a lot of my friends doing various things, like they were learning stuff, they were doing internships at banks and SEMA and stuff. I did a little bit of research and I stumbled into freelancing. So this was about, I think, 7 or 8 years ago. So freelancing was a completely new thing in Sri Lanka at that time. But I was able to work as a freelance article writer. So I was writing articles, and that was sort of like my first job. And I actually continued doing that throughout the university as well. And then, as you said, in the third year of our university, we have an internship to do. So I got selected to WSO2, which is I think, a prominent IT company in Sri Lanka. And yes, that was another really amazing experience for me, because that was my first industry exposure, where I learned about not only about technologies and stuff, but also about working with teams and how you cooperate with other team members and processes and everything. So yeah, that was an impactful 6 months, I would say. And then I went back to university for my final year project. And then after that, I went back to WSO2, because by the time I finished uni, I was very confident in what I wanted to do. I mean, there was a time, I think a lot of people go through this. I mean, especially if you're an undergraduate, like what to do after university, whether to go into industry or to continue studies go into the academia. But yeah, I was quite confident in what I wanted to do. So yeah, my choice was WSO2, so I went back there. And in there, I was a part of the open banking team, which was a very fun team to be in. And yep, we did achieve some really good milestones, but at the same time, I think we had a lot of fun there. So yeah.
You briefly touched upon your final year project, uh, which I think is very interesting. Uh, the technology that you use. So let's just talk a little bit more about what that final year project was.
So yeah, in the final year of university, we are expected to work on a final year project as a part of a team. So my team, we worked on a system called ID Stack. We named it ID Stack, and it's actually a decentralized identity verification system. uh, so, you know how the document verification process in Sri Lanka can be really cumbersome. You get photocopies, you get signed by someone, and then you get it verified by someone, and then put seals and everything, and signatures and everything. So we basically built a decentralized system that could handle everything. So it was based on machine readable documents and digital signatures. So our research actually included a pretty deep dive into blockchain technology. So if you have heard of Bitcoin, blockchain technology is what Bitcoin is built on top of. So yeah, and we were able to publish two research papers on it. Uh, yeah, so that was our final year project.
Now, so we talked about your experience through university. I think, most of us feel like at a certain point within our university life, we feel like, I wish I knew that thing. I wish I knew that thing before I approached it. So, what is the advice that you can give to someone who's in university right now, looking at your experience at the university, about things that you wish you knew when you were a university undergraduate?
Yes, I think one of the best advices I got, and sadly I can't remember who told that. I'm pretty sure that was a senior who advised us to work on a technical blog, like personally. I think that's a really good advice, even for undergraduates right now, because your time at the university, like right when you start university and start learning about things, maintaining that kind of digital footprint is quite important, especially when you step out of the university after 4 years, and when if you're like thinking of going into the industry or even academia. Like, your digital footprint is something that can be impactful, and you have a lot of time. Like, typically a degree is like 3 or 4 years, so that's a considerable amount of time, and you keep learning things, right? So what I did was, so for example, I maintained a personal, like, technical blog where I published articles and blogs about things I learned in the university. And first of all, that helped me learn things, like remember them. But secondly, that helped my improve my communication skills, uh, because communication is a very important skill for everyone. I mean, not necessarily a software engineer or anyone in IT. For any part of life, communication is a very important thing, right? So whenever I wrote something and I published it, I was able to read it in another person's view, and I could understand where I was missing things and not. So eventually, I kind of learned how to explain things sensibly, which I think made a very big impact on my current career. So yeah, that's what I have to advise.
Right. So we talked about your industry experience in Sri Lanka. Now, obviously, you decided to move to Australia. What was that process like?
Yeah, so moving to Australia was always my plan because of personal reasons. But I would say I'm kind of proud to say that I did everything by myself, I would say. So one good thing about Australia is like there are a lot of ways to come and work in Australia, and all those information are available online, like even the government information. They keep updating everything. For example, if you are interested in coming and working in Australia, you can find all about different visas. There are all the information about eligibility, what you need, and how to apply, and even applying. Everything is online. You don't even need to go to office or anything. uh, you can just sit in front of your laptop and do everything. But I think it requires a lot of research, and it helps if you can get help from someone who know about these things. For example, someone who has already done that research, or like a migration agent or someone. But I would say a lot of visas and working and everything, they kind of encourage you to do it by yourself, because it's easy to communicate with you rather than through with someone else, like an agent or someone. And they are very I would say, very concerned about your process. For example, even if you applied and if there's something wrong with your application or there's something missing, they would actually get back to you and communicate with you and solve that problem. So yeah, I think that's one good thing about coming to Australia. So yeah, me moving into Australia, the first time uh, it was through the skilled recognized graduate visa, which is available for students who studied in particular universities. They allow you to come and work in Australia. So that's my first gateway into Australia. And then I came here and I started working, and then yep, I applied for PR, and again, I did that by myself. So it's online, everything. Yep, that's uh, that's how I moved to Australia.
Yeah, so I think one question that we all have when we're trying to get when we apply to a certain position is the interview process. And so I mean, generally speaking, for every position, whether it's software engineering or a business analyst, there are certain things that the interviewer is looking for. So what is your experience in that regard?
Yes. So I think the interview process is quite similar across Australia and even in Sri Lanka for a software engineer, from what I have experienced. So typically, there will be multiple steps in an interview where they will be evaluating different types of skills. And the first thing I can share is about your CV and resume. So uh, most of the time, all of these companies get hundreds and thousands of CVs, right? So they're not going to go through them manually. So they have these automated tools which analyze your CVs and sort of evaluate the CV to see how much that CV is matching with the job requirements. So use a lot of keywords when you're explaining your skills and experience and the projects you have done. So that's the main thing to do, because keywords, if you use a lot of keywords to explain things, that's going to get matched up easily. And yeah, that's the first thing to do, I would say. And one of the skills that they're looking for in a software engineer, obviously, is the technical skills. So, yeah, any engineer, regardless of the branch, uh, is solving problems, right? If you ask what an engineer does, an engineer solving problems. So that's the same applies for software engineering. The difference is we're solving problems in IT and software. So a lot of times, they're looking at your knowledge in data structures and algorithms, but it can be different based on what kind of job you're applying to. For example, if you're like specifically applying for a security related job or like DevOps or things like that, this might be different. But basically, they want to know your problem solving skills. And Another type of skill that's relating to this one is communication skills. So, like technical skills can be evaluated in different ways. They can have like online coding challenges or like pair programming sessions, or even like just verbal communication where you talk with an interviewer. So communication is also applied there. For example, if you're like working on a coding challenge, thinking out loud can be really a good way to communicate with the interviewer so that they know what you're thinking on. So even if your solution is not the best solution, if you can explain your thought process and how you came to that solution and sort of evaluate pros and cons of different solutions, that would be the ideal uh, way to go through that. Uh, I mean, you don't really have to worry about accents or pronunciations or anything. I mean, especially if your first language is not English, you may be worried about that, but you don't really need to worry about anything like that. But if you can just explain your solution in a way that makes sense, you're good to go.
Yeah, so that's some very interesting advice, and I obviously encourage our audience members to ask questions. So I'm getting a few questions personally. What is the difference between Sri Lankan and Australian workspace culturally? So what would be that? It's a very interesting question. So, what's your take on that?
I would say they're not very different because, like the office culture and everything, and the flexibilities and everything is pretty much the same. Because even at WSO2, we had the flexibilities and we had a very open culture. I mean, we had like teams working on different products together, and we always have meetings and stuff. But the same is here. Like right now, I'm in Atlassian, but it's still the same. Where it's very flexible. I mean, Atlassian is even allowing us to work from home indefinitely. So the culture and everything is pretty much the same. I think from different companies, what changes is the processes, for example, how you develop, deliver, and get the feedback. So that kind of processes and rules might be different, but generally the work culture is the same, I would say.
Right. Another question. I am a first year software engineering undergraduate. What should be my general method to approaching languages, programming languages like C or Java?
I would say so. The thing is, IT is the fastest growing industry in the world, like every single day there are new technologies coming up, new languages coming up, and you just have to be passionate about learning new things every day, because in order to because that's a part of being an IT person, so I think you have to keep an open mind. You have to be willing to learn, because right now we won't be able to say exactly what languages will be there in 1 or 2 years, because both of those might not be there, or like completely new set of languages might be there. But even uh, uh, like they like both of them might still be there. But again, I would say C and Java both were prominent languages for a long time. So if you have to choose, I would advise not to choose, just go with both. But yeah.
Right. So that's I think that's a very interesting question. That's a very interesting discussion, and I think it's time for us to wrap up. But before wrapping up, I'll ask you a final question. What is your advice to the young people who are watching this in general? To your
Uh,
career, what's your advice? What's your final advice?
yes. So as a girl in university and as a female software engineer, I can see that the representation of girls in engineering is low. It's not only in Sri Lanka, but like it's throughout the world. It's kind of what we see. And if you're that's something that has to be addressed in the school level, I think, because in schools we don't see a lot of girls doing maths, but that's what ripples off into this the career level. So if you're in school and if you're interested in engineering and if you're scared, don't be scared, just go for it. It's a very good industry to be in. I mean, not just for girls, but anyone interested. If you're passionate about solving problems, go for it.
Right. So, if you're passionate about solving problems, you should indeed go for it. Thank you very much, Sachithra, for joining with us. It's a very interesting discussion. For 30 minutes, we've discussed a lot of things. So, thank you so much. Finally, thanks for joining with us. And thank you for all the members for all the audience members who joined with us. So, we have come to the end of our discussion today, and we'll meet you with another very interesting Tech Talk session soon. Thank you. Good night.